Okay, the first thing coming through is almost funny because this person is used to other people watching them, but in this reading, they are the one watching you. And I do not mean they happened to notice you once and then moved on. I see somebody returning to the same image, the same profile, the same piece of work, or the memory of one brief meeting because they are trying to understand why you stayed in their mind. This person may have seen you online before you ever spoke, or there was one real-life moment, an event, a professional setting, a short introduction, and you did not realize how closely they were taking you in. What looked like distraction may have been an attempt not to make their interest obvious. This is a collective reading, so keep the situation that resembles your life and leave whatever belongs to somebody else. The eye is enormous and completely focused. Your presence interrupted this person's attention. They are surrounded by people who know how to get noticed, but you were not working that hard to be seen. That made them look twice. There is something specific about your eyes, your unposed expression, or your voice. Maybe it is the way you tell a story, or do not rush to fill silence. This person is observant, and they notice you are not performing for them. Then beauty comes in, and this is not a quiet card. Bright flowers and a colorful bird are growing against a black background. You stand out inside an environment where this person thought they had already seen everything. The first attraction was physical. I am not going to pretend otherwise. They liked your face, your style, or the way you carried yourself. What bothered them, in the best way, is that the attraction remained after the image was gone. Now, the next two cards make the high-profile part very clear. Prince of Cups. The filmmaker shows a director in an empty theater, framing a scene with his hands. This may be somebody in film, media, photography, or another visual field. More broadly, they manage appearances. They understand timing and public reaction, and rarely show the world anything they have not edited first. That empty theater matters to me. The audience is gone, but this person is still standing there. So I feel the private version of somebody whose public life takes up a lot of space. After the meeting ends, after the camera is off, after everybody has stopped needing something, their mind goes back to you. Then Knight of Wands. The rock star brings the stage, lights, and charisma. They could be a performer, creator, public speaker, or simply a leader who is well known inside their field, even if strangers would not recognize them. This person knows what it feels like to receive attention. What they do not experience as often is being genuinely curious about one particular person after the room empties. They may have tried to learn about you without making the interest visible. Watching something you created all the way through, going farther back on a profile than intended, or asking about you in a way that sounded professional. Any visible interaction may have disappeared quickly because they did not want it noticed. And somebody did notice. That is the first turn in this reading. You caught the attention of someone who normally controls where attention goes. Then another person around them saw the change, maybe a look, a repeated name, an unusual question, or the fact that they were suddenly interested in something connected with you. The attraction began with beauty. But if it had remained only physical, nobody around them would have felt this threatened. The next cards show what they started seeing in you after the first fascination, and that is where this becomes much more personal. Here is what changed it from attraction into something they could not easily shake. Mother shows a woman in white beneath a red tree filled with watchful eyes. I am not automatically reading pregnancy or literal motherhood. The stronger message is mature, feminine warmth. There is something receptive about you without you being weak, and something nurturing about you without you chasing people who have not earned it. This person may have seen how you treat somebody vulnerable, how you speak about family, how you care for an animal, or simply how you hold yourself when other people become chaotic. They did not only see a beautiful person, they saw somebody who could create calm. And that hits differently for a person whose life is rarely calm. Home is full of hearts, music, measurements, and handmade textures. It does not look like a perfect showroom. It looks lived in. That is important. Around this high-profile person, many relationships may be tied to performance, who they know, what they can offer, what access they provide, how the connection looks from the outside. Your energy feels less manufactured. For some of you, they saw something surprisingly ordinary and it stayed with them. You cooking, working quietly, laughing with family, fixing something in your space, or talking about the kind of life you actually want. They began imagining what it would feel like to be around you when nobody needed them to impress a room. The heal card makes that even more specific. There are bones and mushrooms beside new growth, but the candle is still lit. You may have come through something difficult without turning hard. This person senses that. They may not know the whole story, but they can see that your softness is not naivete. It's survived experience. Somebody here has a calming voice or a creative gift that reaches people emotionally. You may work with beauty, care, spirituality, art, music, writing, animals, food, or another form of creation. Whatever the exact form is, this person feels better after looking at or listening to something connected with you. They may not admit that even to themselves. Then Care shows a woman leaning over a cradle at night. Again, I would not force pregnancy or a literal child into everybody's story. This is about noticing the quiet way you tend to what matters. You may be the person who checks whether everyone got home safely, remembers what somebody was worried about, or cares without needing an audience for it. That quality can be deeply attractive to someone surrounded by attention but short on genuine care. It can also make them imagine leaning on you before they have earned that closeness, so the attraction is not automatically proof that they are ready. It tells me what they want from your presence. Their actions still have to show what they can give back. Now, new moon tells me these feelings developed privately. The dark moon is connected to an opening by a beam of light. A new cycle was beginning, but it was not ready for public view. This is why their behavior may have confused you. There could have been a moment of obvious interest, followed by restraint, a warm interaction, then distance, a strong look, then a return to formal behavior. They were not necessarily losing attraction. They were realizing it had gone beyond the easy category they first placed you in. What draws them is the combination. Beauty got their attention. Mystery made them look longer. Warmth made them feel safe. Your history gave the softness weight. And the sense of home made this person imagine something they do not normally allow themselves to imagine with someone they barely know or cannot easily approach. That is also why the situation became threatening to somebody around them. A passing attraction would not change anything. A person who begins imagining peace, privacy, and a different kind of future may start questioning the life and relationships already surrounding them. This person has more attached to their choices than the average person. That does not make them better than anyone, but it does make them careful. The Hierophant places them inside a formal structure. They could be established in a respected profession, connected to a large company, institution, creative organization, religious or educational environment, or simply responsible for a public brand that involves more people than themselves. Their decisions are rarely treated as completely private. Somebody has an opinion. A manager thinks about the career. A family member thinks about reputation. A colleague thinks about the effect on the team. Even a romantic choice can become a discussion about timing, image, contracts, tradition, or what people will say. For a smaller group, this card can point to an existing formal relationship or an attachment that is more complicated than it looks from outside. I am not saying every person here is married. I am saying you should not assume their public relationship status tells you every private obligation they carry. Then, Royal Children brings idealization, distance, and a very polished picture of what partnership is supposed to look like. This person may place you on a pedestal privately while worrying whether the connection fits the life they present publicly. It can also show family or social expectations around a suitable partner, but it does not prove royal blood or inherited status. The stronger message is that love has become mixed with image. I get a strange loneliness around this person. They are surrounded, but there are very few people with whom they can be completely ordinary. Some people admire the name, some admire the access, some need the opportunity. So when this person encounters someone who is not immediately trying to enter their world, it creates both relief and suspicion. They are attracted to the fact that you have your own inner life. At the same time, they cannot easily control what you think of them. That makes the attraction stronger, but it also makes them hesitate. Now, magnetism/duality is one card with two connected sides, and this is the card that shows their internal split most clearly. On one side, a blindfolded woman is being pulled by a cord toward a device marked magnetism. On the other, light and darkness share the same environment, while an outside hand enters the scene. Privately, this person feels pulled. Publicly, they may act neutral, busy, or almost uninterested. One side of them wants to move closer and understand you. The other side starts calculating the consequences before anything has even happened. This contradiction may already have shown itself. They look directly at you, then avoid you the next time. They engage with something you post, then become unusually quiet. A conversation feels personal for a moment, and suddenly they move it back to work, logistics, or another safe subject. If you know them in real life, there may have been a moment when the two of you were almost alone and their energy changed. Softer voice, longer eye contact, a question that did not sound casual. Then somebody entered the space and the public version of them returned immediately. That does not mean they are powerless. They are still responsible for the way they handle their own feelings. But it explains why the connection can feel active beneath behavior that looks controlled. And there is one more thing on this card, the outside hand. Somebody was not simply observing this conflict. They were trying to influence which side won. This is where the reading gets darker, but I want to keep it believable because not everything here has to be supernatural. Too Many Cats shows one person overwhelmed by animals crowding around her. This person has too many people close enough to comment. Friends, relatives, co-workers, admirers. There is noise around their private life. Not everybody in that crowd is malicious. Some people repeat what they hear because gossip makes them feel included. Some genuinely believe they are protecting this person. But one individual inside the group has a much stronger reaction to you than the others. I keep getting somebody who noticed the attraction before it became a relationship. They may have seen your name appear more than once, watched this person pause on your image, heard them ask a question about you, or noticed their behavior after being in the same room with you. The fear was not simply, they find this viewer attractive. The fear was, if this connection becomes real, my position changes. That position could be romantic, professional, or financial. An ex may fear replacement. A friend may fear losing influence. Or a collaborator may dislike anything they cannot control. Somebody has built a claim to this person that was never actually promised. The serpent shows how this person moved, indirectly. They did not necessarily confront the high-profile person and admit jealousy. They may have presented themselves as concerned. I can hear the tone of it, a small warning about your intentions, a question about whether you can be trusted, or an observation that makes the attraction seem risky. The statement may contain a little truth surrounded by suggestion. That is how effective gossip works. It gives the listener enough reality to accept the part that was invented. This may show up as an unfamiliar account appearing repeatedly, unusual profile activity, or a mutual person asking oddly specific questions. Those things are possibilities, not proof that anybody was tracking you. The clearer message is that somebody gathered details they could later remove from context. The crusader makes their attitude more believable. They may not think of themselves as jealous or dishonest. They have turned their interference into a mission and convinced themselves they are protecting this person, the family, the career, or the public image. That self-righteous certainty allows them to cross boundaries while still feeling justified. Now, the tied sack visual is unpleasant for a reason. The sack is closed, patched, and something seems to be rising from inside it. This person has been carrying resentment for longer than the current situation. You are not the original cause of their insecurity. You activated something older. They may depend on being the trusted one, the person who knows the secrets, fixes problems, and stays closest to the center. The patch tells me the relationship around them was already damaged and repaired only on the surface. Your presence did not create the crack. It made it harder to hide. Then we have conflict, and the image is important. This is not two animals fighting. It is one creature with a cow-like body and a broccoli-shaped head, two things forced together that do not naturally match. That is how the false story may have been built. Unrelated details were combined until they looked suspicious. An old photograph gets connected to a current rumor. A professional interaction becomes chasing status. Your privacy is renamed secrecy. For another group, the conflict was created inside the admirer. They were told you did not fit their public role, family expectation, or existing life, so they tried to treat the attraction itself as the problem. This is where depression appears. I am using that title symbolically, not diagnosing a medical condition. The covered face and surrounding shadows show emotional heaviness and somebody struggling to hear their own judgment over everybody else's voices. You may have noticed a sudden drop in energy. A person who seemed curious becomes silent. A natural conversation turns strained. In person, they may appear distracted or irritated with themselves for reacting to you. This does not mean the jealous person had complete control. It means the pressure temporarily worked. The high-profile person began associating the connection with complication, even though the complication was largely being created around it. Now, the devil brings in fixation, desire, possession, and control. This card can describe both sides of the problem. The attraction may be far more physical and consuming than they have shown. They can feel possessive when others notice you, even though they have no official claim, which is not the same as being ready for a healthy relationship. But the darker side belongs to the interferer. This person does feel entitled. They may believe that years of loyalty, professional support, family connection, or emotional closeness gives them the right to control who enters this person's life. Their jealousy is not only romantic, it is about access and ownership. And then I pulled Witch Bottle. I need to slow down here. The sealed vessels can represent an attempt to contain or redirect energy. A smaller group may connect this with intention work, ritual interference, or evil eye. But I cannot present that as proven fact. The same pattern can come through gossip, psychological pressure, and repeated negative intention without any formal ritual. What I can say is that someone wanted this attraction contained. They did not want it growing naturally. They tried to place it inside a story, a rule, a fear, or a sealed emotional space where it could not become action. But the bottles are sealed. Whatever was sent, planned, repeated, or projected is not moving freely. This card is also protection. The attempt to contain you may be the very thing that contains the harmful intention instead. And that is where their plan begins to go wrong. The atomic explosion / mushroom cloud visual is not predicting a literal explosion. It shows one controlled action producing consequences nobody can pull back. The person interfering thought they were planting a doubt. Instead, they created a reason for this high-profile person to start checking the story. I see one very particular mistake. Somebody reveals a detail they should not know. It may be something from an old post, a private conversation, your location at a certain time, or the name of someone connected with you. They speak as if the information reached them casually, but it is too specific. The obvious question becomes, if you dislike this person and claim not to care, why have you been watching them so closely? For another group, two versions of the same warning do not match. A screenshot is missing what came before it. A date is wrong. Somebody repeats the rumor to a person who actually knows the context. It does not have to become a public scandal. One quiet contradiction is enough to make the whole story look different. Then the fool changes the response. A wandering jester carries a king puppet in his bundle and follows his own road. The admirer begins stepping outside the approved opinion of the group. To the people around them, that may look reckless or out of character. In reality, it is the moment they stop treating one influential voice as an unquestionable authority. With justice, the admirer stops asking how the rumor made them feel and starts asking whether it is true. I see them comparing what they were told with what they personally observed about you. They may trace several supposedly separate concerns back to the same source. That discovery is uncomfortable because it also forces them to admit they allowed another person to interfere with their judgment. Their behavior can change before you hear an explanation. Instead of accepting another second-hand opinion, they ask one direct question. They may look again at the original post instead of the screenshot, speak to the mutual who was actually present, or notice that the person warning them becomes defensive when asked for a simple timeline. That reaction tells them almost as much as the answer. And death closes the old arrangement. This is not physical death. It can be the end of a friendship, an advisor losing private access, a family member no longer being consulted about everything, or a professional relationship becoming strictly professional. Something that operated through secrecy cannot continue in the same form after it is seen clearly. The backfire is not simply that the jealous person gets embarrassed. Their interference makes the admirer look more carefully, and the closer they look, the less you resemble the story they were given. Now the energy settles. Protect shows that the story did not attach to you in the way somebody hoped. Your strongest protection may have been very practical. You did not argue publicly, chase the circle for answers, or supply fresh material every time somebody tried to provoke a reaction. For some of you, spiritual practice, prayer, ancestors, or private protection work also matters here. But composure is part of the protection. A line looks like separate pieces returning to their correct places. Confusion clears when timelines, behavior, and motives are compared. You may notice this before anyone explains it. A strange account stops appearing, a mutual person becomes warmer, or this high-profile person begins engaging again after a period of silence. There can be a small but noticeable correction around you. Someone who was cool toward you suddenly acts normal. A message that never reached you is mentioned, or the admirer stops using another person to test the atmosphere and begins making their own presence visible. None of those signs alone proves the whole story, but together they show the social pressure losing strength. The alignment also changes their behavior. They may confront the source privately, remove somebody from a position of influence, or simply refuse another warning disguised as concern. They still have to prove they can hold that position when other people are watching, but they are no longer standing exactly where the interferer left them. The final cards become extremely practical. Moving back in shows somebody re-entering a space with boxes in their hands. This can be a return after silence, but it can also be literal movement, coming back to your city, returning to an event or workplace, or placing themselves where another meeting can happen. The boxes are important because this person is not arriving without baggage. Feelings may be sincere, while family, reputation, distance, or professional complications remain unresolved. Passport confirms travel, different locations, different cultures, or a life built around movement. I can see somebody extending a work trip, asking whether you will attend a certain place, or using a legitimate event as the first opening. If you live far apart, the next meaningful development may happen when distance becomes temporarily smaller. An ace of discs gives this a tangible form. The first approach may sound practical before it sounds romantic. An invitation, a collaboration, a meeting, an introduction, or an unnecessary question they could probably have answered without you. That practical opening allows them to see how you receive them without immediately exposing everything they feel. I do not see the first contact beginning with a dramatic confession. It is more likely to be measured. They mention the place you both may be, ask whether a project is still happening, or refer to something specific you created so you know the message is intentional. If you respond, the conversation moves from practical to personal, faster than the opening suggests. So yes, the attraction is real. The interference looks as though it exposes itself. But the real test is not whether a powerful person continues watching you from a safe distance. It is whether they come forward with their own mind, tell you what happened without hiding behind other people, and offer something you can actually respond to. They first noticed how you looked. What stayed with them was how different they felt when they looked at you. And now, if this connection is meant to move, the next step belongs to them.